Officials in the Trump administration and lawmakers are raising concerns about China's economic and territorial dominance. This was previously echoed by President Trump, who has negotiated trade deals with China in order to level the playing field. And lawmakers on Capitol Hill have also introduced legislation to reduce America's reliance on China. Here to discuss this further is a managing director of the American Security Institute, Will Coggin. Thank you for joining us.
For having me. It's a pleasure.
The American Security Institute was founded to educate Americans about Chinese government influence in the United States. What does that exactly entail?
Well, I think people are seeing more and more stories out there about Chinese influence, whether it's overt or covert. We saw recently that some major professors, including the chair of Harvard's chemistry department, have been indicted for secretly working for the Chinese. And so our project, which is at ChinaOwnsUs.com, is to really raise attention to the fact of the totality of Chinese influence in America, which many people are not aware of. So you have universities going on, you have secret influence there. You also have the Chinese government funding Confucius Institutes at universities. Our name comes from, in part, the fact that the Chinese have bought up 2,400 American companies. And these are major companies. We're talking about AMC theaters with 8,000 movie theater screens across the United States. You have other companies like Ingram Micro, which are major leaders in technology. And then at the same backdrop, you have the Chinese government going out there and saying, hey, look, by 2025, we have this made in China plan to dominate the globe in 10 key industries: robotics, aerospace, ocean engineering, other high-tech fields out there. So the Chinese government is very seriously and very quickly trying to become the global superpower and displace America.
And Attorney General William Barr, he said last week that the U.S. response to the global ambitions of the Chinese Communist Party will be the most important issue for the world in the 21st century. Specifically, what issue do you believe is at the forefront to address?
Well, we have to understand it's a mentality issue. The Chinese government is out there, and they understand very well that America is their enemy. It's standing in their way to global dominance. They want to take over the world. They, just like the Soviets did back in the 20th century, they want to become this massive empire across the entire globe. They want to control things. They want to have all the technology run through them so they can have other people feeding out of their hand. And the Attorney General Barr is absolutely right. We have to come to terms with the fact, and that's one of the biggest things that we hope to bring to people's attention is the fact that, hey, the Chinese are already treating this like a major global conflict. We need to step up our own mentality and take this very seriously. Certainly, it's good to see what's been going on in Congress. There have been several good bills recently. Just last night, they actually voted to ban TikTok, the popular app, which is owned by a Chinese company, from U.S. government employee devices. That's all good. But I think in a broader sense, people are now saying, hey, look, we have so much of our supply chains that are relying on China in many key instances. With the antibiotics, for instance, 97% of antibiotics come from China, according to a government report. And so certainly with what's going on with the coronavirus pandemic, which originated in China, people are starting to see, hey, maybe it's not so smart of us to rely so heavily on a country, especially one that does not have our best interests in mind.
And I think you make an interesting point because Attorney General William Barr, he said that China's GDP went from 2% to nearly 20% as far as contributing to the world's GDP. But Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, again, as you mentioned, he has toyed with the idea of banning TikTok altogether, urging Americans not to download the app unless they essentially want to give their data to the CCP. But some Americans believe this would be a governmental overreach. What's your response?
Well, I think the government has the right to protect us from hostile foreign powers. And certainly we want to have as open of a system as possible. It's part of what makes our country so great, the greatest country in the world. But at the same time, you have to recognize that there are external threats and that any private business in China is still beholden to the Chinese Communist Party that rules the country, whether they want to be or not. So there's a group called the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States that can review purchases by foreign entities, including the Chinese and others who want to buy potentially sensitive things in the United States. And certainly there's a lot of concern about TikTok potentially spying on its users and that data going back to the Chinese government. I think it's better to from a personal point of view, don't download stuff that's owned by the Chinese companies and by the Chinese government. Just understand there's a risk inherent in that and be very careful with what you share with them.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.